Today, I was wondering what to speak about as a wrap up to the 3-day retreat. And I felt that what I planned to speak about in Auroville and Pondicherry, given that we have marinated in the teachings for 2 days, it might be appropriate to explore this today. Which my teacher didn't speak much about. I think largely those who talk about Advaita don't delve deep into this, nor will I delve deep into it. So perhaps what I present is an oversimplification of the theory of karma, Advaita, Adam and Eve, and chapter 3, verse 27 of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, the theory of karma is something Hindus are familiar with. Perhaps not the details, but this concept of rebirth is not disputed by Indians. It is part of the cultural conditioning. My teacher so rightly said, let us just discuss this birth, peace and harmony in daily living in this incarnation. And one will find that the theory of karma applies not just to birth and rebirth and the cycle of birth and death, but it applies to this life, this one life, and how we perpetuate being reborn day in and day out through unconscious living, perpetuating the cycle of time, creating suffering for others and ourselves, which then perpetuates the bondage, the rinanubandhan. So you could look at it both ways. One is to understand our traditional heritage of the theory of karma, and then to drop that and see how can this be resolved in my spiritual search in this incarnation. Because one thing is certain, anyone drawn to any spiritual path is seeking the truth, has had enough of the material and mundane world. This truth is known by many names: self-realization, moksha, enlightenment, whatever it may be. It is the truth eternal, which is always ever present, whereas the individual, call it ego, personality, depending on what school of thought you are following, is what is temporary and reincarnates time and again, time and again. So let's begin with the theory of karma in very simple words. This is not a talk on academics and theory. As you all know, I speak very simply. So in the Indian tradition, the first karma which we have is called Sanchit karma. It is like a mountain heap of karma. that mountain heap is so vast and so big that it takes lifetimes for the individual to burn up that heap. Lifetimes. That is Sanchit karma. Now, because it is impossible to burn this heap up in one lifetime, God, the source, totality, takes a bit of that mountain for your next incarnation. That is called Prarabdha karma. That part of the mountain heap of Sanchit karma, which one has to work out in this lifetime. So far clear? Now, you could say this is our karmic heritage, the past. Now we come to this incarnation. In this incarnation, as we live day by day, the things we say, the things we do, we are building new karma. Now, this new karma is of two types. One is called Kriyamani karma, the other is called Agami karma. What is the difference? Kriyamani karma is an action which is done and the consequences are born immediately. For example, I slap someone and they slap me back. Account is squared off. Agami karma is action done in this incarnation, but it is not immediately squared off. It is going to take fruit at a future date. So, today's Agami karma becomes tomorrow's Prarabdha karma. And therefore, the individual keeps building to the stockpile of Sanchit karma, and that mountain heap never appears to reduce, because I am rebuilding this pile lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. This is unconsciously living through the cycle of birth and death. There is only this much we are going to cover in the theory of karma. Now, how do I get off this wheel of the cycle of time, of birth and death? Everyone who has seen enough setbacks in life asks this question. And as Bhagwan said, if not the first blow in life, then the second. If not the second, then the third. Eventually, the seeking begins because of the setbacks and blows one receives. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule, no doubt. But this is by and large what brings us together. Now, we find the most important cause for karmic bondage is the concept of doership. So, one thing is clear, cause leads to effect. That is the karmic law. Action, reaction. And now we come to the concept of doership, how it operates. What is this divine spell we are under, divine hypnosis, which was truly not our doing? Now we explore this. The baby, the newborn baby is pure being, pure consciousness, pure presence, what we call Bal Krishna, unsullied, untainted by the ego. And by, after the first year perhaps, that is when the sense of separation starts setting in. And the baby now realizes, I seem to have some power, because if I cry, something comes running to me. And then this baby is given a name and is trained to respond to this name. So identification starts setting in. This consciousness, which was pure being, pure presence, wide open, fully available, now got identified with this is me. This is the birth of the ego. This constriction, this restriction is the birth of the ego. Now this ego is told, you belong to this religion, your parents are poor, semi-poor, okay, rich, and it starts going to school and starts developing interpersonal relationships. So the identification with name and form gets stronger and stronger and stronger. This is me. I am a Hindu. I am Christian. My parents are rich. My parents are poor. And while this process is happening, when I am young, my biggest influences are my parents. They are doing a thorough job of infusing the sense of doership into me. How? For example, I'm a playful child. I'm running around the house. My parents are rich. And my mother is especially fond of buying expensive curios. And in my playfulness, I knock one down. And she screams at me in the moment, shouts at me, tells me how naughty I am, and that I have broken an expensive piece. Till then, the child was innocent, you could say, played around. Child has no value of the object, doesn't even know much about the object, but now has been accused of doing something which the parent is not happy about. So the innate knowing is, I'm not the doer, but I am being accused of doership. This is all the divine hypnosis of the ego. I am being accused of doership, and now that it's established that I am a doer, my parents, perhaps my siblings, maybe my friends, are trying to control me. Doership brings in domination and control. And this is how I live my life as I grow up. So when I take a decision in life, I, as the ego, think it's my decision. I don't realize my decision is based on only two factors: my genetics and my conditioning since I was born, which is what I just spoke about. These two factors have shaped my worldview, made me think a certain way, and I make a decision. But I don't explore this basic fact that making a decision is just the mechanism employed in daily living. It's truly not mine, because I didn't create my conditioning, I didn't create my genetics, a higher power did. So if I feel it is my decision, it is a falsehood. Yet, decision I must make. That is what life is about. Now, when I realize this, a very big thing happens. I am freed of the burden of the decision. So I make a decision, there's an outcome. I may like it, I may not like it. It may go for me, it may go against me. That is what the Bhagavad Gita is about. The action is yours, results you cannot control. But the Gita begs you to explore, is the action also yours? So, the problem is, if I am immersed in doership, I build up volumes of pride and arrogance for decisions which I think really benefited me, my decision. Or the flip side, guilt and shame for things which went wrong, my decision. I failed. And so this ego is now given a mother load of pride and arrogance and guilt and shame, thinking decisions are mine. Now comes others, relationships. When I'm immersed in the concept of doership, I believe others are responsible individuals doing things to me. And so I love some and I hate some. Within my own family, I know whom I love, whom I don't like. Within my friends, whom I love, whom I don't like. All based on doership. And my life becomes a life of conflict, of splitting, which the baby never did. The child consciousness had no idea of this split. But this is what the adult does. Who is near to me? Who do I want to keep far away? And I blame, and I condemn, and I hate, and I judge. And I can live my life till the last breath immersed in these qualities. Now imagine if I am living in Tiruvannamalai, practicing Bhagwan's self-inquiry, who am I? But I am a nasty person. I walk all over people. I don't get along with most. Most of my relationships are not harmonious. And I have absolutely no peace during the day. If Bhagwan's inquiry is to discover the self, S caps, and we agree that the self is all there is, it includes my relationships. The self, S caps, is not a goal to reach in that sense. The self is everything, all there ever is, was, and will be. So you could say, a master as Bhagwan, even if you didn't know Bhagwan, and you saw simple acts of his, like when someone gave him a bar of chocolate, he counted the number of people in the room and cut the chocolate into those many pieces to make sure each got one of them. So we see simple actions which show this felt oneness with everyone. So, coming back to the point, the ego deluded thinks I am the doer, which is what Lord Krishna tells Arjuna. At the peak of the battle, the climax, when Arjuna the warrior sees the army in front of him and tells his guru, Lord Krishna, that look, enough is enough. I can kill the enemy, I can kill everyone, but I will not kill my preceptors. And he refuses to fight and puts the bow and arrow down. And that is when Krishna tells Arjuna, see, the thing is, you think you are killing them. You don't realize you have been born, trained to be a warrior, conditioned to fight. And what you don't realize the most is that the killing will happen through you, not by you. The killing will happen through you because I, Krishna, as the Lord of Time, have already killed them. So, I beseech you, pick up the bow and fight. And this brings us to the climax. The ego deluded thinks I am the doer. The ego deluded thinks others are the doer. And this is the primary pivot in Advaita. If the word itself means not two means the doer is only one. Appears as two doers, me and you are doers, but not two. Advaita. The Gita says God is the primal doer. If this is understood, it is the end of karma. Karma by itself means action. The load of karma, the mother load of karma, is when the action becomes my action. When the action becomes another's action. When what was the primary polarity of me and the other in the design of duality switches to me versus the other. This is what perpetuates the bondage of karma. This is what adds to the heap, the mountain heap. So when we imbibe this concept in this lifetime, there's a huge explosion because it marks the beginning of the end of the creation of new karma. It marks the beginning of the end of the creation of new karma. Now I go back to the theory of karma. What it means is, I now will no longer add to the heap of Sanchit karma. That story is finished. Which, if I believe in the theory of karma, means to me that I now will limit the number of future births that I have, if I'm thinking as an individual. Now at least that much relief I will get. But I do know there's a mountain heap. I do know it will take lifetimes. Each lifetime will be given a packet of Prarabdha karma. But because I have imbibed and understood this principle of non-doership, not true, I am relieved. No more unconscious adding up of karma. This is the true gift Advaita has to offer. Because you will find in this lifetime, when this message reaches the heart, how it transforms this life. Forget about past lives, forget about future lives. When the teaching of non-doership is imbibed, this lifetime becomes full of peace, equanimity, and calm. So the next time someone troubles you, or the next time you meet someone who has historically troubled you, in your own mind, when you are in front of that person, tell yourself, I now see the truth behind it all. I now see that what you are saying is based on your conditioning, which a higher power created. And you are merely an instrument through which it is being said. In this case, it was designed to hurt me, because it was my destiny to be hurt. But now the instrument is irrelevant. The instrument loses its relevance because I have absorbed the individual of hurting me. And now we come to the story of Prahlada. When God came to Prahlada and said, look, young boy, I want to grant you a boon. And Prahlada said, my Lord, seeing you in front of me is the only boon I need. He said, no, I insist. One wish. And Prahlada says, all right, my wish is that no harm comes to those who have tortured me. The Lord is surprised. You wasted this one boon by wishing this? He said, no. I want no harm to come to those who have tortured me. because to wish harm upon them means to wish harm upon you because you created them. So, cause and effect, effect and cause. As we said over the last 2 days, the cause effect arrow is double pointed. The cause effect, which is the karmic law, arrow is double pointed. We think A leads to B, B leads to C, C leads to D, but the arrow is double pointed because for D to happen, C had to happen. For C to happen, B had to happen. For B to happen, A had to happen. This, Maharaj would say, is reversing into the future. Reversing into the future. So every time a happening happens, rather than thinking in the duration of horizontal linear time, the realization is this had to happen. And for this to happen, these circumstances had to have been in place. And I go back. With imbibing this, I lose the need to analyze my life further. Otherwise, I'm always asking, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why did this person say that to me? Why did that thing happen? The mind asking the question, why? These why questions collapse. The why questions fall down like a house of cards. That is what happens. Can you imagine a mind without the question why? Because it gets replaced by thy will be done. Anytime why comes up, thy will. The mind is freed of why, and the mind is freed of should, would, and could. I could have, but you didn't. I would have, but you didn't. No should, would, could, no why, in effect marks the end of time as I know it. And to end time is to end the karmic cycle, which basically means if I am living in the present moment, fully in alignment with Advaita, it is actually the end of karma as I know it. How is that possible? I read a book many years ago. There was a Gujarati gentleman called Bhai Thakur. He used to travel the world giving talks on the theory of karma. When I read the book, I felt there were certain concepts there which were perhaps outdated because consciousness evolves, there are new thoughts replacing old thoughts. But there were some very beautiful pointers. A lot of the theory of karma is also fear based, which is the biggest misunderstanding, to instill guilt and fear about my past actions. So I set that aside as far as my research on karma and understanding of Advaita was concerned. But I found a most beautiful example he gave, which explains how the heap of karma falls down. So, this is most interesting. He says, imagine you have a dream, and in the dream you murder someone. You have a dream, in the dream you have murdered someone and you are caught. You are caught and you are sentenced to jail for 20 years. This is all in your dream, which perhaps lasted a few minutes. So you start your time in jail. The first year goes by, the second year goes by. It's mental torture for you. The third year goes by, the fourth year goes by. And now the torture is unbearable, and the jail warden hates you, beats you up. You receive all kinds of abuse in jail. And it is so painful, so painful. In the dream state, you're having this dream, you're in such tremendous pain, and the biggest thought of suffering, I have 16 more years to go of imprisonment. And that pain is so excruciating that you wake up. What happened to the 16 years? What happened to the 4 years? And what happened to the jail? You wake up, you're in bed, my God, the dream is over. I'm out of the dream. Is the jailer going to come and take you back to jail? We all know that dreams do not have continuity, unlike the waking state, which appears to have continuity. That is what makes the waking dream different from the dream. So what has happened? The 20 years of Sanchit karma, of which 4 years was the Prarabdha which was experienced, wouldn't you agree with me that when the person woke up from the dream, Sanchit karma collapsed, Prarabdha karma collapsed, Kriyamani karma collapsed, and Agami karma collapsed? This is Hirabai Thakkar's story. Now, it's just amazing how the universe functions. I marked this story, I don't know when, how many years ago. And a couple of years ago, in the COVID years, I was given a book, and this is what I read when someone asked Bhagwan, that Bhagwan, if we look at the theory of karma logically, a jnani like you, with self-realization, we can understand the Sanchit karma collapses. We can understand Agami and Kriyamani karma collapses. But Jnani also has to face Prarabdha karma. Jnani also has to face Prarabdha karma. So what did Bhagwan say? That day, Bhagwan quoted a verse that expounded the truth about the three karmas. Sanchit, the karma accumulated from our past lives. Agami, the new karma we create in our present life. And Prarabdha, the karma to be worked out in this life. According to the scriptures, for Jnani, Sanchit karma and Agami karma get nullified, but he still has to experience Prarabdha karma. Bhagwan has rejected this with a humorous analogy. He says, when one is beyond the control of the mind and body, it is not possible to say that two karmas are nullified and one karma alone will stick to him. Imagine that a man is married to 3 wives. If he dies, all 3 will become widows, not just 2 of them. Please, the last sentence. Because sometimes people say, who's this joker sitting here telling us this? Bhagwan would say that. The last sentence. Just as none of a man's wives can avoid becoming a widow on his death, so also, when the doer is gone, none of the 3 karmas survive after that. Can you see how important it is to live the teachings of non-doership? Forget about a Sanchit, Prarabdha, Agami, this Gami, that Gami. Forget all that. How important it is for us to understand what Krishna has said and what Bhagwan has said, and to live it. To me, I would call this the core of living the teachings of Advaita. I may talk about formless consciousness, consciousness with form, Sagun Brahman, Nirgun Brahman. I can talk about the Brahma Randhra, this, that, left, right, is all fine. But I'm a simple guy. I don't understand all this. But when it comes to relationships in one's life, at home, in the office, friend circle, the stranger on the road, this is where my lessons are to be learned, where I am being tested. And the value of any teaching can only be found in how it impacts my daily living. And I will know for myself where is my mind in conflict, when am I at peace. Everyone knows it for themselves. I certainly know that in deep sleep I am most peaceful, but the problem is I am not there in deep sleep. So it is my own understanding that I am at peace when I am absent. That is everyone's experience. Then I know that the dream state is somehow manageable. Somehow. Because I'm going to wake up. So nightmares don't trouble me as much because I'll wake up tomorrow. The real problem is the waking state. The persistence of memory is the problem, because memory brings with it regrets. And memory makes me anxious that the same things don't happen to me again. And so makes me anxious about the future. And so my life is lived between regret and anxiety. This is the shared human experience. The burden of memory is not the memory itself. The burden of memory is this happened to me. And so I come to now this understanding. The ego identified with name and form as a separate entity, that is the ego. So one could say, When the body dies, the ego is dead. Finished. Another birth, another ego. So this ego has nothing to do with that ego. So why bother about all this? Fair enough. Fair enough as long as you are living a life of peace, because that's what we are concerned with. You may say, I'm not bothered because this ego is dead, but then please live your life in peace and harmony, equanimity and calm. Or you could explore this. By all means, the ego is dead, the personality is dead with the death of the body. But what about unresolved desires and tendencies, which, according to the theory of karma, rebirth is taken to fulfill unfulfilled desires and tendencies, sanskaras and vasanas. And according to the other stream of thought, this is the ego. The unresolved desires and tendencies which takes rebirth to get resolved is the ego. So we can get stuck with definitions. My point is, does it really matter whose ego? Something which is not resolved needs to be resolved. Something which is not resolved needs to be resolved, and therefore the spiritual journey becomes an avenue and a gift for the resolution of that. Which basically means we are all in this game together. You cannot have a spiritual journey independent of the other. Yes, you may have a yogic journey. You may go to a cave in Rishikesh in the Himalayas, start your sadhana, start your tapasya, start your breathwork, no doubt. Goraknath has given thousands of approaches for self-realization. Thousands, not even hundreds. But you and me are living in this world, normal people, householders, engaging with communities, and it is for us to find our peace in daily living. Bhagwan had so many householders coming to him as well. They moved to Tiruvannamalai, stayed with him, all kinds of people. And so this teaching is for us to understand, not get trapped in practices, in sadhanas, and ignore the greatest sadhana. The greatest sadhana is the discovery, or rather the rediscovery of peace. And that is why I never tire of mentioning. When I started reading Bhagwan's books, by that time I had a sufficient background. Earlier I was raw. And I was reading talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. I had already read other books. I read Padmalai, Kova Vachai, Crumbs on His Table, this, that. But I said, and Bhagwan constantly pointed to peace. Constantly. The greatest siddhi is peace. But when I read in that talk where Bhagwan says, the state of equanimity is the state of bliss, I shut the book down and I said, I need no more confirmation. The state of equanimity is the state of bliss. Not some peak experience, not some explosion, but something as simple. The Master of Masters brought it down to this. Because this peace is the end of karma. So, whatever my belief on reincarnation, on what defines the ego, which definition to take, is quite irrelevant. If I blame you and hate you today, I am reborn into the relationship with you. In this life, I am being reborn multiple times. I am reincarnating into the same issue because my thinking mind is like a mouse on the wheel, doing cartwheels upon cartwheels upon cartwheels of he did this, she did that, I did this, I did that. In this birth itself, I am having millions of rebirths. And God is so benevolent, so kind, that to give me some smidgen of relief, at least in deep sleep, I am not reincarnating myself. Look at how compassionate God is. Except for those whose minds are so turbulent that they cannot sleep. Can you imagine how underrated the gift of deep sleep is? So, where's my peace to be found? As Joel Goldsmith would say, are you going out of your house as an individual or as the presence of God? So, someone once told him that, when I get out of my house, I get into my car to drive, my thought is, may I be protected. May no harm come to me on the streets. And Goldsmith said, what kind of prayer is this? May I be protected. May no harm come to me. He said, you should go out with the knowing that God is behind the wheels of all the cars. God is behind the wheels of all the cars. And that is why he would say, be a benediction of peace wherever you go. Be a benediction of peace wherever you go, whether it is a restaurant, the airport, but we are benedictions of troubled minds, which we carry with us wherever we go. How to be a benediction of peace? When you realize there is no power apart from God. Adam and Eve, male and female, primary polarities, ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. When mankind, humankind, started thinking that there's a power apart from God, apart from consciousness, which is out to hurt me and harm me, then humanity entered a dual universe. Till then, it was non-dual, not two. What happened is the polarity of good and evil, we assumed that one source was responsible for good, one source for evil. This is what Advaita is about, not two. Good and evil are polarities. Pleasure and pain are polarities. No one's life has always been pleasure. Rich and poor are polarities. The framework of daily living is polarity and duality of every conceivable kind. So when we live this understanding, there's no power apart from God. It means there's nothing apart from consciousness. Consciousness is all there is. We have given power to what we think is something apart from this consciousness. Is it possible? How absurd it is. It is absurdity stretched to its maximum level, but thankfully we are not the doers. Thankfully. This is the design, this is the rediscovery. Consciousness rediscovering itself through fragmentation and separation to realize its wholeness. It is the journey of consciousness, it is not the journey of the individual. And so we take on this load of the spiritual journey. It is not yours. Allow consciousness to play out through you. Use you as an instrument to rediscover itself. It doesn't need your help. It has never needed your help. It will never need your help. Because it is running the show. I mean, can you imagine a movie where whatever you see on the screen thinks it is running the show? The actors, the villains. While this poor screen on which the movie is shown is quietly sitting, but ignored, because the movie is so enticing, so alluring. This poor fellow consciousness is like, everyone's eyes are moving around left, right, up, down, and I'm just sitting here. Everyone is missing me. I'm right here. Nobody is seeing me. Where can I go? But because the ego lost in the drama of my life, completely lost, enamored, overridden, overtaken, it lost contact with its source. The reconnection with the source is the discovery of itself. Not my will, O Lord, but thine be done. And I start allowing people to be the way they are. Normally, I'm trying to tell people how to behave, what to do, and giving free advice without them asking me for it. Isn't it absurd? You think you know better than God. A, you have not been asked for advice. B, your advice is based on your conditioning. What makes you think it is the truth and what makes you think it is best for the person receiving it? Yes, parent-child advice by all means. Because for a child, the parents are the gurus, the guides. But we adults love advising. We are professional advisors. I use this reference of a miser often. Someone with a lot of money, I know, never put his hand in his pocket. And we were at a table, and another friend said, ये तो साला कंजूस है, 2 रुपया भी नहीं देगा. Means he's miserly. He will not even give 2 rupees. He's a millionaire. But hello, how do you know what happened in this person's past? What difficulties they faced? What made them miserly? Do you have the backstory? So, circumstances beyond their control made them who they are. You are accusing them of being miserly. You have labeled them, you have judged them. More importantly, if you have accused someone of being a miser, it means you know what it is to be a miser. So someone took umbrage at this statement of mine and sent me a mail. I have never been short of money. I have never been a miser. So it doesn't mean that everyone knows what it is to be a miser. Then you are defying the polarity. The polaric opposite cannot exist without the other. Misery, money, being a miser, being generous are polarities. You have to know the other. You know rich and poor. You know pleasure and pain. You know left and right. You know front and back. Do you know only front? Do you know only front? You know black and white. Do you only know black? And maybe you are not a miser. But why are we talking of only money? I can be miserly about my time. I can be miserly about thinking abundant thoughts about someone else. There are various ways to be a miser, and I'm quite sure I'm one of them. So, this constant labeling and sticking labels on people's foreheads, which I have been doing in the past, this need starts dropping away. Because let's not forget, if I call someone a miser, that is the content of my consciousness. It really has nothing to do with the other. Miser, miser, miser is going on in here. That is the Maya. It looks like objects are external to me. Everything is arising in consciousness. So, what is the content of my consciousness? That is my sadhana. That is my true sadhana. If one day I sit in the evening and review the content of my consciousness, I will be horrified. And worse, if someone comes and projects that onto a screen for the world to see, the garbage which I'm carrying within my own consciousness. And as Eckhart Tolle says, especially when he came to India and he had read it, I read it in one of his books that when we see a mad person on the street mumbling away and we laugh at them and they say they are mad, imagine if our thoughts were verbalized. Who would look more mad? The mad person mumbling or us? And when he came to India, you see many people like that on the streets. And I thought, it's very clear to me who's more crazy. Do you know the teacher, the master Meher Baba? Meher Baba did something very peculiar. He found the so-called mad people in and around Ahmednagar, and he took them into his fold and told his devotees to look after them. And he called them mast, musts, God intoxicated, appear to the outward world as mad, but because they were in an altered state of consciousness, they could not handle the mundane world, so they needed to be looked after. He considered them God's special children. So, if I live polarized, whether it is my opinion about a political party, about a movie, about anything, if I am not able to walk the Buddha's middle path, I get blindsided. Filters come in. I refuse to see the good when I only see the bad. I made things very cut and dry. In the worst personalities, I have seen the greatest compassion. That is the human experience. And when we start setting aside personality, the persona, we relate. We start getting more relatable with people. Why? Because of the recognition that nobody created their personality intentionally. Nobody created their personality intentionally. It happened. It happened. And so, how do I live my life going forward? I'm going to face challenges. No doubt. And this beautiful saying, Shamam virasya bhushanam. Shamam virasya bhushanam. Forbearance is the ornament of a hero. Forbearance is the ornament of a hero. How do I get this forbearance? When I accept there is no power apart from God, it helps me a big deal to go through life's challenges. When I stop giving power to individuals being apart from God, to situations being apart from God, it gives me forbearance. It is easy to blame someone and hate someone. It takes courage to accept nobody is the doer of their actions. That is forbearance. Now, Sai Baba tested his devotees in a very big way. There's one story which I almost always get wrong, but the essence is the right one. Where a devotee says, Baba, I want you to come to my house. I'm going to work very hard to make wonderful food for you. Makes me very happy. And he says, of course I'll come. I'll come tomorrow at so and so time. And she is working for 2 days, dish after dish, preparing a large, sumptuous meal, and is all ready. And 2 p.m. comes, and Baba does not show up. It becomes 3, no show, becomes 4, no show. So she is very upset. She is very hurt. And she tells him, I told you I was preparing a feast for you, yet you didn't show up. He said, I did. She said, you didn't. He said, I did. I was barking at your door at 2 p.m., but you didn't open it and feed me. These are the tests. Do you truly see the one behind the many? Some yogis used to give very severe tests. Luckily, we belong to the gentle yogis type, the gentle masters, who are benevolent, kind, have those eyes you get lost in. That's okay. It's not that with all yogis. Trust me, I have seen fierce yogis. Like, I can rest assured if I was in Maharaj's satsang, I would be right at the back. I would not be able to sit in the front. My teacher was the opposite. London School of Economics, beautiful English, gentlemanly, and I was home there. One yogi had a great sense of humor. I think I went to him, it was his birthday. So a few devotees came to the ashram. So one very sweet girl came with an envelope and had tears down her cheeks. There was so much love and reverence. And they were standing in line. I was sitting next to him. And she bent down, gave the envelope. And he turned to me and said, you know, she's actually crying because it's been hard to part with this money. These are the tests. She heard it. Yogis work in very mysterious ways. And if you are part of the Nath tradition, then you're in big trouble. It's not for the faint-hearted. So we are fortunate. We have these masters to imbibe from, to understand my spiritual journey is not only about me. It cannot be, it will never be. The problem is the me. It is not about me. It is to discover that the problem is the me. Yet the me must operate in daily living. Therefore, I now realize the problem is the sense of doership which surrounds the me, the crust. When that drops away, as Bhagwan says, the ego becomes like the remnants of a burnt rope. It cannot be used to tie anything. Yet, if someone calls out Bhagwan's name, he responds. That is the ego. You cannot live without the ego. Kill the ego is just said figuratively. But when the sense of doership is uprooted, when the thinking mind is dissolved permanently, there are only two states. One is when there is work, the working mind is in full action, and when there is no work, there is a vacant witnessing. And this witnessing, this witness consciousness, when the concept of doership collapses with the understanding of non-doership, which has gone to the heart, then the game is up. Now, what does this mean? When a teaching has gone to the heart, how do I make it go to the heart? I will explain this important point. First, a teaching is intellectual. It makes sense, I've figured it out, I've understood it, but it's so hard to implement in daily living. Why? Because I have years of conditioning behind me. A thief is a thief. That's my previous conditioning. Now, the way you have explained it, I can see that a thief was conditioned. Perhaps his father was a thief. Perhaps there was lack of money which made him a thief. I don't know. So, my intellect is understanding how the thief is not the doer of his actions, yet he must be punished according to the laws of society because actions have consequences. I have clearly understood now, and this way of seeing the thief I did not have before. So, what has happened? I have awakened to a new way of seeing the thief. Earlier, I judged the thief. Now, I have seen that perhaps all this was going around in the background, which made him do something. And of course, he will be accountable for his actions. So, I have awakened to a new way of seeing. But how does this come into my heart? So, by and by, when I see how this whole principle of doership is collapsing, it's going to take me time. But tomorrow, when someone comes in front of me, and this process is no longer needed to analyze that the person is not the doer, it is instantaneous, it has gone to the heart. Till then, it's a process because fresh conditioning has to override old conditioning. Once I am not going through that process, it's instantaneous. That means the teaching is in my heart. Now, what does teaching in my heart mean? It does not mean the physical heart. It means the heart of awareness. My awareness is so total, so full, that the mind is now functioning as a blip within that awareness. If I am rooted in the self, then this is just a movement, a ripple. So the whole game has turned. That is what happens. That is what is meant by teaching in the heart of awareness. Now, if I am established in the heart of awareness, what happens? What happens is I start operating from the physical heart, the heart center, the bridge between the lower chakras and the upper chakras. How do I operate from the heart center? Compassion arises. A felt oneness with being arises. I often use the example of my mother's guru, who was a judge of the Bombay High Court. And sometimes he had to pronounce very severe sentences, very severe. And this person, Justice Dudat, once he would pronounce it, sign the paper. In some instances, he would get up from his chair as a judge, walk down to the witness box, and hug the criminal. Because he knew, I am playing a role. But that compassion, that felt oneness with the other, is operating from the heart. In Christianity, we have angels and archangels. And the wings, they're always depicted with wings. The wings are nothing but a vibration of the heart chakra, which looks like wings. That's how wings came to be depicted, because the seers, the ones who could see, translated the seeing for us ordinary people and drew wings. All this is very deep symbolism in our culture. It is extremely deep. But it's the same. The temple bell and the church bell. Why are the bells not down? Why are they up? That's the vibration of the Sahasrara center. Everything is deep with meaning. But that's the subject of another day. So this operating from the heart, earlier domination, control, controlling my lover, controlling my sibling, controlling the staff member, this love of intoxicating power. Power is intoxicating for the ego. As my mother says, when this love for power becomes the power of love, then you are operating from the heart. We are all power hungry. Covert extremists and terrorists with weapons more deadly than what are made. By our words, thoughts, and deeds. When the realization is anyone I am targeting means I am targeting the one self. Look, it's so simple. Consciousness is speaking through me and listening through you. Can we be clear about that? Consciousness is speaking through this instrument and listening through that instrument. So wouldn't we agree that if consciousness is speaking and consciousness is listening, that consciousness is all there is? Because without consciousness, this would be dead, that would be dead. So who is speaking to whom? Consciousness is speaking to consciousness. So wouldn't we agree that consciousness is speaking to itself? Consciousness is speaking to itself. If I remove the person, the ego, the sense of separation, pure being here, pure being there, consciousness is speaking to consciousness. Would you ever have any problem with that? So even if consciousness abused you, you'd be fine. It's okay. I'm speaking to myself as consciousness. Where's the problem? No problem. But when it is through people, persons different from us, then it hurts me. I get hurt. That is the whole cosmic joke. Consciousness saying, I'm behind this whole damn thing. Can't you see how obviously present I am? How obviously present I am. But lost in the dream of personhood, you cannot see me. The joke is you're alive because of me. You can't see me, but you're alive because of me. Absolutely crazy. Once Eckhart told me that when this is realized and someone is in front of you who used to upset you earlier, You may just find you start laughing, but he said, be careful with that, otherwise there'll be repercussions. Because it happens. You will find yourself laughing at someone who triggered you earlier because you have seen it for what it is. So you'll burst out in uncontrollable laughter, and that person will really take it personally. I'll tell you, I started doing this when this whole thing sank in, and someone said something which was very different from my view. I would say, you are right, and they were very happy. I would say, you are right. There would be a gap, and then I would say, from your point of view. I said, but it is your point of view. But you are right. Try it. Tell someone you are right, wait, and say from your point of view. The ego loves to make it personal. This reminds me of the regulars, of course, are bored of this story, but boredom is also good, na, once in a while. In my advertising days, I had this very volatile client. Heart of gold, no doubt. Heart of gold. But he was so brash, full of anger, that my client servicing executive said, we cannot deal with this client anymore. My copywriter, then I said, you become the client servicing executive. These guys have refused to deal with him. They also said, we can't deal with him. So I had to deal with this client. And I knew he had anger issues. And one day he called me, he was very distraught. He said, Gautam, something happened which has deeply disturbed me. Deeply disturbed me. He said, last evening I got angry with my mama. Mama is mother's brother. We had a very big argument on the phone. A lot of anger arose. And in the morning, when I woke up, my first thought was, I'm going to apologize to him. Because no matter what, no matter the point of view, this should not have happened. And I thought I would get ready for the day, do my prayers and call. And we got a call that he had died in his sleep. So I said, that's very sad to hear, but I guess this is how it was meant to happen. He said, actually, that's not the only reason I'm calling you. I'm calling you to tell not only you but your staff that I would like to apologize before getting angry. So I'm telling you in advance only, sorry. Then I can get angry, then there's no problem. I don't want a situation where someone dies and I can't apologize. So I'm apologizing from the start. Very good. Like someone came to satsang recently. Some of you were there at home. And she said, basically I'm a very brash person, but it's my planets. That I'm clear. I said, very good. Clarity is essential. And she is actually saying it. I'm not the doer. But I said, as long as you can handle the consequences of your brashness, we are fine. She said, that's another time ka story. You see? People can't help being who they are, and we must have this realization. Just like we can't help being who we are. When I no longer take things personally, to me that is true love. True love is the absence of the person. Otherwise, it is a dualistic love. True love is impersonal. I know it sounds cold when I say that. Why? Because the person loves the warmth, loves feeling special, me. But the love of the sun's nature is to shine. It does not care whether the light is falling on a good person or a bad person. The light of I am, of consciousness, of conscious presence, pure being is neutral. And rediscovering this light within us is the spiritual journey. This neutrality. That is why when a woman went to Ramakrishna and said, I think I've got it. She was the mother of a child. He said, tell me one thing. Do you feel the same way about others' children as your own? She said, certainly not. My child is my child. No, got it. You see? The person, me and mine. This me and mine is the troublemaker. In Sufism, certain sects of Sufism carry this very far, the process of being unselfed. And I often give this story of the Sufi mystic Bhai Sahib. When his Russian disciple moved to Kanpur, he told her, come with your checkbook. Tell me how much is in your bank account, and from tomorrow, every morning, we'll make checks out and reduce your bank account to zero. That is the Sufi way. And so he would receive letters of people who had need of money, medical emergencies, and one by one, the checks were given till her bank balance shrunk. And she said, Bhai Sahib, now I'm on the bare minimum. So don't worry, give that also. It was a test. A test of her faith in the Guru. Not the Guru as an individual, as consciousness. What he was telling her is, you are here, you will be looked after. Do you trust me? And to trust me, you have to trust yourself. Because whomever you are giving money to, you are giving money to the one self only. If there is only one self, the money is going to the self only. Appears as others. That is the Sufi way. And as I said, I think on the first day, I don't know if I gave the example of the chair. When one day in the courtyard, in his satsang, he said, oh, what a lovely black chair or blue chair. And she said, Bhai Sahib, it's a lovely chair, but it's not blue, it's black. And he said, it's blue. And she said, no, it's black. He said, well, it is blue. She said, look, to me it's black. And he said, it's blue. And she said, all right, if you're saying it's blue, it's blue. He said, no. Doesn't work like that. If I am saying it's blue, it means you must see it as blue. Now, what does this mean? Not to have blind faith. He was saying the Guru presents you with a new way of seeing. You are seeing black. Are you open to another seeing, another dimension? When we are open to this other seeing, then only can awakening happen. The opportunity is presented. That is why in the Zen traditions they say empty your cup of tea first before filling it. Remove all your old concepts. Then only something new can go in. I remember once when I was with Guru Nath and someone told him that a very rich Maharani is coming from Rajasthan. She came, she had her assistants, we were just sitting there. He didn't utter a word. She came, had a minor monologue, told her background, this, that, and she went. So his disciples said, Gurunath, it was a huge opportunity. She could have really made our work known and all. And he replied, the palace doors were shut. The palace doors were shut. So the Guru, which is the higher self of the individual consciousness projected onto a form, is showing a new way. If we are open to the possibility that I have been viewing my life a certain way, in a very limited way, and there's a larger picture, it is my own internal Guru, the Guru within, which is coaxing me to say, hey, see things another way, see things another way. Then comes the revelation. That is the resurrection. A new way of seeing becomes a new way of being. And when the mind becomes still, that is the be still. I am God. All the heroes and all the villains of your life story are within your consciousness. Towards the end of his life, when my teacher could barely speak, I went and told him that these 4 talks you gave, when he was very feeble, voice was very feeble, I said, I think we'll make a small booklet. That was the last book published of his. It was called The End of Duality. And I got it ready. He unfortunately passed away before it was published. But I was by his bedside. He was lying down. And traditionally, in the earlier 6, 7 books, we always sat and made out an acknowledgements, whom to thank, who has helped edit the book, helped in other ways. You mention a few words. So I said, Guruji, now whom should we put in the acknowledgements? And he replied, he said, over 30, 35 books, we have been acknowledging the one source consciousness. This time, let's not do it. If consciousness has spoken through me, if consciousness has worked through you, if consciousness has edited the book, If consciousness will print the book, whom is there to thank? And there was no acknowledgements in that book. That is the end of duality. Nobody to thank, nobody to abuse is the end of duality. It's not about being a good person. As Hirabai Thakkar said, rebirth, two choices: iron cage or golden cage. Cage is cage. You be a good person, you come back because you get good karma points. So you have to live through them so you can receive them. Still a cage. This is the cage. This is the imprisonment. As Maharaj said, you have identified with the name and form as a separate entity. Undeceive yourself and be free, for you are not a person. Undeceive yourself and be free, for you are not a person, which basically means no is the other. When we live this way, we are dropping our bodies before our death. It's so simple. If I'm interacting with consciousness, with the hand of God, my interaction is now with consciousness. I have already processed the death of the ego. So simple. when I constantly going forward in life turn away from personality, I keep turning away. The ego gets sucked into personality. Turn away. Turn away. That is what Goldsmith calls the reinterpretation. Reinterpreting my earlier patterns. Reinterpretation. Reinterpretation. Relating with presence, pure being, consciousness is what is depicted most beautifully in the pantheon of Indian gods and goddesses, where you have Lakshmi looking at Vishnu. As Siddharameshwar Maharaj says, Lakshmi is attention. Lakshya is looking at Vishnu consciousness, he who pervades. Attention, the attention of attention is placed on consciousness. Earlier attention out there, lost in the living dream of life. Now, a turning. The attention is on attention itself. For me to experience any pleasure or any pain, I must be there first. Now that is where my attention lies. Because it has always been there first. Consciousness contemplating on consciousness. Lakshmi looking at Vishnu. Same thing, Lakshman. All these hidden symbolisms everywhere. Mother Mary holding up baby Jesus. I got this beautiful figurine from Chartres Cathedral outside Paris. Holding up pure being, pure consciousness. Shakti as Mother Mary holding the baby up with its arms stretched out for the world. I am. Deep symbolism. So this is what I would like to leave you with. Of course, afternoon is a 30-minute silent meditation. And after our tea, we are going to Tiruvannamalai temple. Hopefully, I think Sangeeta will announce it. If she agrees, the Shakti's permission is always required. And everyone is welcome to come. We just go and sit in the courtyard in silence, not as a discipline, but just admiring the proximity of Arunachala and absorbing it. And the final session, as usual, will be after dinner, where I hope singers are in full force. And I would like to thank the team of volunteers, because when I look at how my own journey has evolved with 1-2 people coming to satsang to what it is becoming today, I would not have been able to do this on my own. And so I'm very grateful that so many of you are handling so many aspects of these gatherings. And I have always felt that the beauty of a sangha, a community of truth, is so special. Nobody knows nobody. There was a Clint Eastwood movie, My Name is Nobody. I remember that. And so it just pulls any satsang, any gathering. But if I go by Yogananda's definition of Rinadubandhan, Paramhans Yogananda said that even the stranger you cross on a road, if your eyes meet, it is on account of Rinadubandhan, a past cosmic debt. And my mother had a vision in one of her meditations of the karmic wheel moving through the cosmos with seekers of truth sitting on the rim of the wheel, and it's rotating and rotating, and the guru figure is in the center. This karmic wheel, seekers of truth, an eternal cycle of discovery and rediscovery and rediscovery. That community, which comes together in the quest of truth, is depicted in this visual. The seekers of truth on the karmic wheel. I made tremendous friendships when I was young. I would go to Eckhart Tolle's retreats, Ramesh's satsangs for over 9 years. And truth be told, I reached a stage where if I had to spend a Saturday evening with the friends I've known from college in Bombay, and if someone from the satsang said, hey, let's all go out, we are here for 3 or 4 days, my preference started shifting to the strangers because I found this truth which has brought us together more sacred than conditioned relationships. That was for me. May not be everyone's story. I'm sharing from my experience. And so by and by, I went through a process. I was gifted with many friendships, but I realized in many, I was just wearing conditional masks for approval, validation. And sometimes the conversations didn't go to areas where I would like them to go to. And I thought, according to our scriptures, we are all assigned a limited number of breaths. Maybe I must be more mindful of how I spend them to strengthen my sense of self, my identifications, or to explore avenues, perspectives on truth. People used to laugh at me. My friends used to laugh. Oh, you're going to this old man every Sunday. Oh, this yogi is in town. You said that one came to your house. I was quite ridiculed in the South Bombay societies. I have received that. I know it. But the preference for the company of truth overrides everything. The courage to be disliked. The courage to be disliked. So thank you for taking time out from your busy lives. I have enjoyed this as much as you have. And if you have suffered this, I apologize. But thankfully, I'm not the doer. I don't know when we will meet again. Some of you soon, some after some time, some perhaps never. We don't know. But to me, even one meeting is enough. Because in meeting you, I have met an aspect of myself. And if we can carry this thought in our daily lives, whoever we meet is an aspect of myself. Because there is only one self. So who is meeting whom? The self is meeting the self. The guy who stole my money is an aspect of myself. The guy who gave me money is an aspect of myself. That is all there is. That's the end of reincarnation. That is the end of karma.